The following is brought to you by VerticalVet. Rethink your GPO.
Hello, VerticalVet family. I am Dr. Ernie Ward, Chief Veterinary Officer for VerticalVet, and once again, welcome to another exciting edition of our Business Academy. And again, these are the webinars and the content that we bring to you to help you on the business side of veterinary practice. So we appreciate you joining us today. And today we're talking about something that really we don't talk about very much at all in veterinary medicine, and that is automating processes, right? So, I mean, you've heard me over the years, you've read my books and articles about, systems and products and methodologies applied to practice management and workflows and appointment flows and all that sort of stuff. But today we are going to be joined by another veterinarian and entrepreneur who's going to be discussing his take on automation in veterinary practice. And I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Jim Delano. Jim is a veterinarian. He calls himself a VET, veterinarian entrepreneur and teacher. He's been a practice owner for the past 33 years. He's built a lot of different businesses. He also serves at UC Davis, and he teaches business and communications to all levels of students there. His practice cares for approximately 17,000 clients, and they serve somehow over 300 zip codes. He's got 100 to 110 staff, which we'll ask him about in just a little bit, including 12 full-time DVMs. Again, he is passionate about growing young people, and I think that's one of the things we need so desperately in our profession is passing on the best practices. But today we're going to be talking about automation. And so, Jim, thanks for joining the VerticalVet Business Academy.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, let's talk about this practice that somehow serves over 100 or 300 zip codes. What does that even mean?
It's humbling. What that means is the San Francisco Bay Area has about 7 million people here. We started when I moved here in 1987. There was 3.5 million. So the whole Bay Area has doubled in size. And I believe that how we practice, the level of care we provide, the pricing that we provide has just broadened our reach to cover an incredible number of zip codes.
Wow, I thought I was doing pretty good to cover about 10 zip codes, but I'm in rural America, and I guess that's the difference. You guys must have a lot of zip codes. Well, listen, before we even start today, the title of this webinar is called Automation in Veterinary Practice. So let's just start off by defining what is it you mean when you say automation in veterinary practice?
For me, automation means removing a human being from performing a task. And that is so important because we're so short on staff to begin with. But even if we were fully staffed, anytime I can take something away from a human so they can spend more time in front of a client or working with a patient, and those are our passions in veterinary medicine, right? Improving the quality of human life through caring for animals. Wouldn't we all rather be doing that than filling out forms and checking off boxes?
Okay, so in simplest terms, it's really automating more paperwork or administrative duties, because when you said automating veterinary practice, that's where we're headed with this, right? I mean, because that's where technology can so much help us.
That is correct. We're using technology to streamline workflows.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that because you're right. The emphasis should be not on filling out records, but on petting pets and in taking vital signs and in communicating with clients, because, that's honestly where we find the most joy. Well, the first thing we're going to talk about, and again, I like you, I've been doing this a long time. I guess the first book I wrote on this was in 1999 on the veterinary experience, creating the veterinary experience, my first book. And it was all about improving the appointment workflow. So the efficiencies, the methodologies, the systems that you build in. And a lot of that, back in the late 90s, of course, technology wasn't what it was today. So let's talk a little bit about when you refer to, improving the workflow, let's maybe dive into that a little bit more. And how can automation help us improve the workflow, especially everything except for patient care?
Sure, we'll just approach the exam first. So in our practice, if you have an appointment scheduled for tomorrow, today you're going to receive a link to a form that's online that has a variety of questions that we'd probably ask you at the beginning of the appointment, but now you're going to answer them sitting at home at your PC or your Mac, or you're going to answer them on your phone, which the majority of people use mobile devices now. That form is returned to us and attached to your medical record before you even arrive, so that the doctor can review what's top of mind. Like, why are you coming in today? What are your concerns? If there's a lump on your pet, where is it? Like, there's a little image that pops up and you can point to it. And think of what that saves when a veterinarian can briefly skim that and walk into the room and already know what your primary concerns are.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you know, this has been something that's been around a while. I think the greatest advantage that we have today is the mobile application, because, you know, let's face it, we've all been emailing these forms out, these pre-appointment, you know, evaluations, you know, completion forms. Having said that, you know, for me, Jim, the biggest thing is now it pops up on my client's phone. And so suddenly now they're able to actually do it, because back in the day, you know, I mean, email has gone from something that is essential to, quite frankly, arbitrary in our lives. It's like I'm buried under emails. So I love the fact. Now, are you finding that more people are, I mean, in my experience, the mobile platform, you know, anything I can get to them via text or on their phone, I have higher compliance. Are you finding the same out there in San Fran?
Yes, people don't want to check email, right? They want to get this, or they don't want to reply by email. I guess that's the better way to put it. But these alerts go out either through SMS, through text message, or through email. And think about the urgent care when the people are coming in 30 minutes from now, you know, or they're sitting in your parking lot. Like during COVID, this helped us tremendously with people sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I even like the fact that, you know, you're right. Something that we don't do a very good job of is when it's that same day appointment, you know, we need to probably get a little better with that. And that's a great time saver for sure. And so, again, when we talk about, you know, getting information ahead of time and being able to review it prior to or at the time of, this can help lead to fewer mistakes. So maybe explain a little bit how automating can ultimately lead to better patient care and outcomes and us making fewer medical mistakes even.
Yeah, so if you think about it, every time you go to your physician or your dentist on an annual basis, you fill out this same form where you check all the boxes and you say, yes, 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 it's the same, or make this change, this is different. And we typically have done that by printing a sheet of paper, wasting paper and trees, and handing it to a client and having them sign it in the waiting room, which takes time. So that's a waste of time. People tend to show up right as appointments begin, so then doctors get behind. And then a CSR is tasked with actually understanding someone's handwriting. If you could send this out ahead of time, and I picked up on this because I went to my dentist and they handed me an iPad, and I just updated my information on the iPad. Now, if I make a spelling mistake, that's on me. It's not on the CSR at the dentist's office. So if we could automate that process at the veterinary office, it's generated out of the PIMS data, and the client just checks the boxes. If they've had an email address change, if they've had a street address change, they type it in, and now it comes back in a form that's legible to the CSR.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Even my hair salon, which I don't have to go very often, but I do go there for my beard. I mean, they have an automated iPad system too, where you just check in, and honestly, it's brilliant marketing, because then they're constantly sending me coupons for this or that hair product that I no longer need, sadly. But you know, it is sad how behind sometimes the veterinary practice really is when it comes to deploying and really even accepting these types of technologies, because, you know, Jim, and the VerticalVet family, we have a lot of small rural, you know, clinics out there, and many times they think it's cost prohibitive or just technologically, you know, overwhelming or maybe even intimidating. So how do you go about, you know, explaining to a veterinarian who maybe isn't as tech savvy as you would be in Silicon Valley, you know, how do you explain to them that, hey, this is nothing to be afraid of, it's actually pretty easy?
There's two things I think are really important. One is that this generation that makes up the majority of our clients, if you hand them a sheet of paper, they just look at you wonky. Like, they're used to doing everything on their phones. There are still many practices that snail mail AR every single month. And so think of a young person getting a bill in the mail. First, they probably don't check the mail. If they do and they open it up, they don't have a checkbook to write a check to send it back in. Then think of what you can automate to save time up in your reception area for when a person walks through the front door. We're already either understaffed or overburdened with clients. So the faster we can move people through, the more efficient we are. That affects revenue. If it takes a CSR 5 to 7 minutes to get a client into a room who shows up barely on time because they have forms to fill out, and if they don't, then a veterinarian is upset because the forms aren't filled out and they're not updated. Let them fill this all out ahead of time. You get it into the records. Things are much more streamlined in the business.
Yeah, and I love the fact too. I mean, it is shocking. I'm sure people are sending bills, invoices in the mail, which is probably not the best business practice these days. Well, again, though, but you're talking to certain, all a wide spectrum of veterinarians out there and practice managers. But again, they're going, okay, that sounds great, and you sound like you have a lot of young clients, but we don't. I'm in rural Nebraska. I mean, how do you go about explaining to them the advantages of employing these types of technologies when maybe they aren't familiar with them? Maybe their hairdresser doesn't, give them an iPad when they come in. I mean, how do you talk to that person who's saying, I'm a little bit skeptical about this?
I would ask them if they truly think that their 50, 60, and 70-year-old clients are not engaged digitally. My in-laws are in their 80s and live in Iowa, and they are on Facebook more than I don't have a Facebook account, but literally they are engaged more on their phones than I am on my phone. I have had 70-year-olds schedule appointments with the chat function on the website. These people are engaged that way, and that's how they want to do it. Think about if they have to make a phone call to schedule an appointment and you have a busy practice and they sit on hold. They just don't want to do that. Think of the person who has to drive 30 minutes just to get a refill of heartworm prevention or flea and tick prevention when you could pop it in the mail or you could collect the payment ahead of time. They show up, and instead of spending 5 to 7 minutes of your CSR's time to charge them out, they walk in the door, you hand them the meds, they turn around and they walk out.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, again, when it comes to pharmacy refills, shipped directly to the client, I mean, these are the areas, I mean, and again, Vertical Vet Family, we have resources with partners all across the spectrum. So whether it's food deliveries, whether it's pharma, if you don't have your own website with your online store or pharmacy, I mean, we have partners that can help you do this. And so I love that Jim is once again validating and reinforcing the importance of offering these types of direct to our patients and clients sales things. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about too is just the impacts that we're seeing now across the country with workplace shortages. I mean, it's darn near impossible to hire a veterinarian. It's even more challenging to get a vet tech. I mean, we're even competing for CSRs and assistants. So explain to us a little bit about how, automating even the most minuscule, minor, insignificant types of tasks can really help us deal with these types of shortages.
Sure. We've spent years filing insurance claims on behalf of our clients because it's great customer service, right? And more people get pet insurance every day, which is really important. We know that when people have pet insurance, they spend more on their pets and ultimately take better care of their pets. We had to move away from filing everyone's insurance claims because we were spending 3 to 4 hours a day. So we signed up with Trupanion Express to automate that. That actually collects money for us and it manages that workflow. Clients love it. We've also signed up with Greenline because Greenline processes rebates on our behalf. So we give a client an instant rebate right there at the front desk. We don't have to mail in rebates anymore for clients. And we get a check back from Greenline every single month.
Yep, I love it. But again, getting back to the issue of I'm shorthanded, right? I mean, I just don't have the number of staff that I'd like. I mean, have you seen any, do you have any stats or anything? I know we recently had a guest on who was talking about, just automating, some of the reminders, how that not only drove revenues, but actually improved, the workforce or workload on the CSRs up front, because again, there was an automated scheduling component to their service. I mean, anything like that you could share with us that might help?
Yes. If we're not processing rebates and insurance forms and we're saving 4 hours a day of staff time, that right there is freed up a half of a shift. So either you don't even have that person to perform the duty, or that person can now perform another duty. Everyone's reminder should be automated. That's just mind blowing to me that people don't have automated reminders. And then we've also transitioned and we let our clients schedule appointments through online services. So we don't even have to answer the phones. Our phone burden in COVID just blew through the roof, and we realized we need to do it a different way. I have always looked outside of our industry to see how other industries do it better and try to bring it in, just like your hairdresser. When you go and have an experience somewhere else, you say, why aren't we doing this in veterinary medicine? And I brought these in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, most people are hopefully, now extending their reminders beyond postcards and emails to text messaging. And again, Vertical Vet family, if you're not, up on these things, we've got partners that can help automate it. So literally you just click back and the appointment can be made. So, these are all really important. Let's also kind of, as we near the end of today's discussion, Jim, I mean, there's a change, right? I mean, we've seen a shift from boomers now to millennials, in between, or is my generation X, but we get forgotten by you guys and the younger folks. But again, how does that affect? I think for us, we see a much more, very encouraging and enthusiastic acceptance of these types of technologies, especially millennials and Gen Zs in the workforce. But what are you seeing out there as far as clients and our employees? How's that demographic shift actually affecting automation?
Well, 75% of my staff are millennials or Gen Zs. So for them, when we bring in automation, it's just natural for them to both adopt it and to promote it. I'll give you a great example of another way we've saved a tremendous amount of time, and this has been accepted by every generation. So we board pets, and boarding drop-offs and boarding pickups traditionally take a lot of staff time and a lot of client time. So we have express check-in and express check-out. A person sits at home and fills out all their boarding paperwork online digitally. This also leads to greater revenue because if you think about it when they're sitting at home, especially if it's mom sitting at home, she's like, check bath, check toenail trim, check extra walks. If dad's dropping off the dog, it's no, 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 no. So we generate revenue, but also they walk in the door, they hand their pet over and they leave. Most of them are harried and want to get out of town. When it comes to picking up, we already know the day, the time they're picking up. They've given us a time window. We have everything ready to go. And we've texted them and they've made a payment so that when they show up, all they do is have this joyous reunion with their pet. We have saved checkout time in CSR land up front. So again, we're using workflows to reduce the amount of time it takes to manage clients. And as we get into problems with hiring, these have benefited us.
Yeah, for sure. And again, Vertical Vet family, the most important thing here is the ability to get into somebody's phone, because, many of us have been doing things like, express checks and stuff for years, especially with boarding and grooming. But the sea change over the past 15 years, at least in my opinion, has been the advent of mobile technology, because, Jim, back in the day, against heavily reliant on email, and over the years, we just saw less and less compliance with it. And now, when suddenly there's that text reminder, and I can't tell you enough, guys, if you want to increase revenues, you make it easier to do it when they're not rushed. And I just can't tell you enough. Even if you do grooming, I mean, the amount of upsells, if you will, or add-ons, it's just terrific. And same thing with surgery check-ins. I mean, back in the day, just email, we saw huge increases, especially early on, but it really got amplified, I think, whenever we went mobile. Well, Jim, kind of what does the future look like? I mean, you're there in Silicon Valley. I mean, what can we expect as far as automating things in veterinary practice over the next, 5 years? What's coming? I mean, you have a crystal ball called, everything technology-wise there in the Bay Area. So tell us what we can expect.
Well, from a tech perspective, I think one of the biggest sea changes going to take place over the next 5 years is we're going to see a lot of the legacy software systems just disappear and move to cloud-based software systems that are so much more robust. If you think of all the third-party platforms that are required for a veterinary practice to function right now because of these legacy old software systems, it just takes so much time. So I see that we're going to see a transition to better quality software that incorporates a lot of things. In the interim, I think you're going to see a lot more text payments being accepted. It's amazing when you can text a URL link to a client and they tap on that URL and it pops open with a pay now, the amount they owe, their name, their zip code is all in there. And all they do is find the credit card in their wallet, tap it, and it's paid. You're talking about a transaction that literally takes seconds versus standing at the front counter, swiping a card, having them signed. I can't even believe if you're having people sign receipts still, even in rural America, just stop. It's a waste of time. The credit card companies don't care about a signature. And if you look at the number of people who file a claim that, oh, I never made that charge, it's a fraction of a percentage.
Wow, I love that. And I agree with you. Basically, there's been such, moats around some of these old software PIMs that, oh my gosh, just you had to bolt on. You've got 20 different things when literally we need one solution. So again, before we let you go today, tell us a little bit about your company, Grow a Better. I mean, because, honestly, I think you guys are doing some exciting stuff, and I'd like to make sure our Vertical Vet family knows about it.
I started out giving talks on how to onboard a veterinarian and grow a better DVM. And that was all I did, was just talk about that. It's a passion of mine. We mentor veterinarians, and I share all my mentoring materials. And then people said, well, can you share with us like what you do when you automate, and what do you do for team development, and how do you grow a better practice? So I just shortened it to Grow a Better. It's not sexy. It's not a one-word company. But what we have done is taken a lot of the solutions that we use in our practice, and I've put them out in the cloud for other veterinary practice owners to use. So accepting digital payments, we have an entire digital forms library that you can take and make your own. And then, of course, organized onboarding for both onboarding a new veterinarian, all the different areas that you mentor in proactively, not reactively, as well as staff training. So those are all different things that we have put together at Grow a Better. Ultimately, we need to automate because we're short on staff and because the next generation expects it. Like, they're looking at you and you hand them a form, and they're like, what do you want me to do with this?
I totally agree with that. It's like, wait, this thing, what does it do? I've never used one of these before, Well, Jim, I got to tell you, this has been a really interesting conversation. I mean, I think a lot of us have been working on appointment and workflow efficiencies for a long time. I think what's so exciting is to see technology intersect with our dreams. And so now it makes it a reality. So again, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Growabetter.com. Again, we'll have links if you need to get in touch with them. But anything else, any bits of wisdom you want to share? I mean, I know a lot of people that watch this, they're younger veterinarians, they're younger practice managers. What bit of advice would you leave them with today to say, hey, they're going to get through it, because this is, these are uncharted times. So tell us a little bit about what bit of advice would you give them right now watching, going, oh my gosh, this is too much.
Oh, my advice is really to the boomers and the Xers of the world that it's time to accept the millennial generation and the Z generation and begin to understand them. They're amazing generations. They're going to change the world. They look at it so differently than you and I have. And I'm excited for their generation and what they're going to do. They've brought change about in my practice, and I look to younger generations to show me the path forward to being a better veterinarian as well as being a better business owner.
Love it. Dr. Jim Delano with Grow a Better. Definitely check him out. And he's got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Check out some of his tools. Again, if you need any assistance getting in touch with Grow a Better, let us know here at Vertical Vet. Jim, thanks again for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. Have a great day.
Thanks. Well, that is it for another edition of Vertical Vet's Business Academy. And again, we're so excited and honored to be able to bring this type of information to you, because we want to help you elevate your practice. I mean, we're not just helping you get by and get through your day and make the grind. We're actually here to help you transcend your normal into that extra normal that you are looking for. So for us at Vertical Vet, we are super happy to bring this kind of content. This was sponsored by Zoetis. We want to thank them so much for sponsoring this edition of Business Academy. And on behalf of the entire growing Vertical Vet family, I am Dr. Ernie Ward, and we want to thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.